Let's talk about some Striders. Several Striders. At least two. I'm sure you already know, most people know, Strider started his life as 3 separate projects, 3 incarnations of the same character. We had an arcade game, an NES game, and this weird static medium that you control with your eyes. But if you're anything like me, well, first, sorry. Second, your first exposure to Strider was probably in the fading light of the last arcade era. You know how it was, that uncomfortable buzz of having 30 loud video games next to each other, with kids playing them, some classic rock barely audible in the background, and there's your boy. Now this was when I was young and stupid, so I wrote him off with some half-baked thought like, animal companions are lame, what a dang nerd. I had quite a mouth back then, you see. Then, a few years later, I found Strider 2, and I discovered that, oh my, this game is raw to the core. What do you think happens when you ask the 90s what they would do with this bright pastel ninja? You get these heavy black lines, basically etchings, and the color palette and background as bright as the Marianas Trench. Strider 2, I love Strider 2 so much. I love that it presents this detailed mission plan, as if strategy matters when your guy can cut the sound barrier. I love that you can climb rocket ships on foot. I love that this game sets up a ninja fighting a space captain on a jet, as if it is 2 cowboys squaring off at high noon. Goddamn, the radicalness coming off of this thing hurts my eyes. If science runs out of ways for how to deal with the change in our collective temperature, I would say investigate Strider 2 as a source of perpetual cool. And on top of that cool, there's this lunatic genius that it comes by from the original, because that game was bonkers. And the designs range from this dark futurist fantasy to, well, honestly, some PlayStation 1 era polygon abominations. I mean, look it, we got ace designs in here, like automated museum exhibit, dull hands with expensive power tools, and friendly fire. Street Flasher, except missiles. Sir Shoulder Pads and his realistic sounding robot horse. Why does it neigh? It's a I think this one is just a water cooler for Sona researchers. And what about this thing? Look at this majestic beast. Is this a man combined with a jet, combined with a tiger? Or I guess he could just be riding it? Either way works for this game's aesthetic, to be honest. I gotta say, only a game as brilliantly absurd and kinda unbalanced as Strider could go to the trouble of putting forward a design like this. Center your attention on it for several seconds. Whoosh! It's gone. Multiple times the game does this. Multiple times it's like, hey, check out this radical asshole. We gave him his own introduction and everything. And you're like, oh man, this is gonna rule. Oh. See, the balance is tilted in favor of the player, maybe even a little too much. First, most of these bosses are in the featherweight division. You can interrupt or slow down enemies with attacks, and that's bad for them because this boy is swinging it like the frame rate of the game, it seems like. Also, if you find their health wasn't low enough, you can always pick up and maintain a buff that's generously ladled throughout every stage, and the consequences of picking up this buff are, well, not preposterous, but definitely in the suburbs around preposterous. Now, some of the enemies realize they should only take damage every quarter second. These are the smart ones. But see, at least there's a reason for this tilt. This all makes sense once you realize that the game is basically a score chaser. Here's the secret sauce that brings it all together, right? There's a big dividing line between, this score is okay, and you get an A. You did what you were supposed to do. It's this thing right here, this special bonus. My entire plebe score almost fits inside of it. This bonus is gained by not taking a hit during the entire stage, and that makes the entire setup make sense. That buff, for example, the game teaches us that if you get damage, it will leave. I don't know why I blew this up, you could read it before. There's some hidden score pickups that you can cut out of thin air if you look around hard enough, but most of these guys are going to be 10 to 50 grand. You're not going to find enough to make up for 2 million if you take a hit. That's why it's so important. This is the reason I was talking about, the reason for the tilt in favor of the player. This is why playing Strider should make you feel like the enemies are an organized shrubbery militia, or like a sudden outbreak of aggressive papier-mâché. You remember our friend, the Decepticon? I mean, it's funny, but this shit's on purpose. This ain't a mistake. You can't get hurt if everything around you is already dust. Unless you have allergies, I guess. Here in present day, we might put on our sophisticated pants and make a case about how having a sword that is also a laser, that is also faster than most guns, doesn't make for the most challenging or deepest gameplay. But forget that. They knew how to keep you moving from cool murder to cool murder at a good clip. And that brings me to the big thing that I remember about Strider 2. The thing that stuck with me, and also my convenient segue to Strider 2014. It was the movement. This game lets you rocket off walls, change direction like you're a Russian driver on Live Leak. And here's the peach. Well, actually, you can probably guess it if you just remember that from the beginning, the game has been about destroying the attack button. Let's think, I mean, the game should let you mash jump too, right? Check this out. Being near a wall in jump state lets you latch back onto it just by tapping towards it, meaning you can chain spam jump on demand indefinitely. This combined with the fast dash and the double jump and all this means mash jump is the way to flex nuts. This brings us as promised to Strider 2014. 2014 is written funny in Japango. Language sure is weird. You might have noticed that 2014 is in the past, a lot. I only just now got to playing this game, and it's because I had to manage my expectations. You can't expect a modern game to let you cancel your jumps indefinitely until you fly into the sun, even if that would be completely dope. That said, without being spastic to that extreme, the new Strider does retain quick climb state transitions. Jump climbing, regular wall scaling, and jumping off walls all chain into each other rapidly without long bloated animations jamming up the flow. In case of need, or if you are simply impatient, you can also use jump off to cancel the end of the jump scaling animation. This makes quick changes in direction to jump between obstacles feel very snappy. You can also switch direction without any loss of speed, even in midair. Look at that. I always found motion in the new Strider effortless, with a high cap on the amount of mobility you can bring to bear in a fight. Not that you ever really need to, but we'll get into that later. And I'm glad I got over my, you might say, stupid hang-up, but I'm the one talking, so legitimate concern, because it was great to get to see the characters and world of Strider transition to HD. Side note, if you ever find yourself thinking, I wonder if this guy ever had enthusiasm or a personality, always remember that this effect here took me 2 days to figure out, and when it was done, I looked at it and I said, it would be better if I just did something stupid, like this. What a waste of a life. But my point about the game world receiving a facelift for modern times is that there's a lot of Strider arcana in this game, just sort of chilling in the background, striking these alluring but iconic poses, making very intentional eye contact with me from across the room. The throwbacks make it clear that the devs think Strider is wicked. Well, to be fair, the Steam page also makes that clear, in plain English, within a minute of you clicking on it.
What do you know about Strider? Practically everyone that knows me knows that that's my dream game. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Of course.
So yes, whoever just sarcastically said duh out loud, way in the back, congratulations, you're a genius. The floor recognizes your correctness. That statement was a little bit basic. Now stick a Mensa membership in it. Some of the return details are very surprising. He's got the launcher from Marvel vs. Capcom, and that is so beast I could eat my own face. I put time in here to explain what a launcher is, but I'm just going to assume that you've heard of an air combo before. If you haven't heard of an air combo, let's just say it's a typical maneuver in a fighting game, and that you should reassess your priorities. As for what it's for in this game, I actually have no idea. Unless you're bound by honor to style on one guy in particular, it seems like you could just not and save time. Regardless, it's really cool that it's in. This game also has something the old Strider didn't. Content. A lot of the sections in Strider 2 were fun-sized. Now granted, I have the benefit of hindsight. I wasn't a working adult in 1999. Back then, I was still eating large bowls of delicious dinosaur egg oatmeal. But it seems to me that if you can only go 20 seconds before you have to load again, maybe you should wait. I think I just saw something in that last section. It was here. Did anybody notice that this robot praying mantis thing has a man's head? I am stoked that I found this because I didn't think I could be surprised by Strider 2's designs anymore. Anyway, the content in this case is a Metroidvania style world. I'm gonna be real with you, this is the most straightforward Metroidvania I've ever played. If you're way into that genre and you love stuff like Hollow Knight and Cave Story, just be aware that the exploration and lostness aspect isn't front and center in this outing. Objective arrows are big and friendly and in your face and constant because ninjas do not get lost. I honestly didn't find much motivation to backtrack either because a lot of these hidden bits are concept art, which is like 4th on my list of top 3 motivations. Independent feedback suggests that I should try to relate to those younger than myself whenever possible, so let me underscore my feeling of disinterest with a designated amusement image composition. Please enjoy it the appropriate amount. Still, the good meat of the game, the prime rib, is much bigger than in previous servings, and that's great. To match that, I guess, the presentation of the story is as well. In this labored metaphor, I guess that would be the garnish. The garnish is huge, kind of in the way, and that is the boneheaded way I just chose to tell you that Strider's story hasn't moved an inch in about 30 years, so maybe I'd prefer it if I heard less of it. Even in the beginning, the word story implies a certain coherence that... Okay, let me explain. We gotta go back to the beginning of this web conference, which, for the sake of a smoother segue for both of us, I'm going to ask that you recall as taking place in the late 1980s. Hang on, I think I can throw something together for that. Yes, the late 1980s. For it was then, over the sound of your Walkman, you vaguely heard me mention that the game Strider was a righteous arcade cab, a turbo NES cart, and a Japana magazine. Daddy-o. The NES and comic book storylines are closely related, with the arcade game branching out to rock its own gig, Daddy-o. Different story, different characters, hell, might as well even be a different timeline or some shit. Quick intro to set the scene. In this iteration, the Striders are an organized force, and they are currently engaged. Oh, should have scrolled down further. Currently engaged in mercenary operations across the globe. Most notably in what is current-day Kazakhstan, where they are absolutely not messing around. The situation escalates to a point that merits the removal of glasses and a dramatic canned line like, "Damn it, get me McBain." We cut to picturesque, Mongolia, where retired super ninja Strider, receives the call to action, photoshops his head onto a much larger guy, and sets out. So the NES, the comic book, these are full fleshed out plots about intrigue among spies. It's got betrayals and human drama and shit. The characters in this game probably feel like they eat food and breathe oxygen. As for the arcade game, I'm not a very good storyteller, but I'll try and summarize. A guy with no legs rules the world, and you decide to cut him in half. Now look, stop. I know somebody is revving up the actually, but listen. I was sort of kidding. It's to make a point. I know there's more than a sentence to this game. Now listen, come close. I wasn't kidding. You look at this idle screen and you tell me I'm wrong. There's not much context to explain why you do all the rest of the things you do in this game before this, unless the actual goal the whole time was history's least stealthy assassination. That's a strength though, because all the rest, in this case, actually means, Jesus Christ, what? A wrestler accosts you on the frozen roofs of Vladivostok, the city council turns into a communist dragon, you travel to places that are really only connected by being on Earth. It's a wild ride, and explaining it would slow it down. The director of the arcade game was part of the team that created Strider's look and feel and backstory. The other two projects chose intensive narrative. The arcade director was like, nah. Actually, his exact words were, "You can tell a complex story in a manga or even in a consumer game, but it's impossible for an arcade game, which is played on a per-coin basis. The issue is the story's details. If you do that, you destroy the gameplay. We changed the world to better fit a standalone arcade game." But you know, language usually depends on context, so I think nah is pretty accurate. The simplified approach to the story is right there in the name of the main bad guy. This is Grandmaster Meio, Dark King. The mysterious specific symbols can have multiple meanings, but I bet you most people would just read this as Dark King. But to be sure, I should consult an expert. Hey, Johnny.
Yeah?
I need your help. What do you see here?
I see dark.
Okay, and here?
That says king.
Okay, what do you see here?
God fucking damn it.
Got him! But seriously, the guy's name might as well be like Grim Nasty Man. But despite that simple background and maybe a contempt for comprehension, the original painted an inspiring, fantastical, confusing vision. And I think that's a tagline for anything Elon Musk does these days. That vision, by the way, has remained the same ever since. It's been revisited in picture-perfect form every time. Strider 2 even had this neat call-out to it where it mentioned that the events of the game had taken place before. But for a plot as razor straight as this, you would probably expect exposition to be only if it's really cool. Cause if you expand on nonsense, you might end up
Key
with—
to the tower. To enter that, you'll need a key to a key.
Oh no.
To access.
You may have bested many on your quest, Strider. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
logic, odds, and
This might seem like a non-issue to you, but I'm used to Strider only bothering to talk to me if it's awesome. Like for example, breaking into a spaceship, finding that it's powered by a mermaid, and then having her say to you, "Kill me." Whoa. Now that's economy of communication. Maybe it's just me, maybe I have a fondness for too much edge, so I can't appreciate,
imagine what I do with a giant.
I guess I'll call that vanilla edge anymore. My only other complaint would be I wish this game were a bit harder, but Strider has never figured out how to be the right amount of hard. This game has all the tools and all the reflex and mobility in it to really force you to think around and outmaneuver your enemy, but it never really uses them. Imagine if you had to use your mobility to get around unblockable shields to attack in weak spots. If you're the kind of person who's played Capcom games for a while, the kind of person who knows Strider, the kind of person whose fan demand made the game possible, you can probably handle a little bit more difficulty than this.
I will not stand for this any longer.
Oh yeah, we're way over time on this. This might seem really long, but I actually covered 3 different games, so, you know, the value proposition is obviously incredible. If you want to see more overly long, overly thought out rambling nonsenses, you can click this button. I don't know what I'm gonna do next, probably some Steam thing I found for like $3.